Rebecca, the idea of consciousness, what it feels like inside, has been a passion of my entire life. I thought I would help learn what it is by doing a doctorate in neurophysiology, because I was physically working with the cerebral cortex, the highest part of the brain, and did a lot of great things in science and loved it and learned a lot, but I didn't learn very much about consciousness at all. Mm-hmm. Why? Why did I fail?
Why did you fail? You probably learned about correlations between various conscious states and physical states, right? That you, that is something that we have refined, right? Sure. More and more. But the deepening of consciousness itself, of knowing more about what it's like to be conscious, the various states of consciousness, getting these correlations with the neurophysiology is not going to really give you that. We get more and more correlations. To really be able to reduce consciousness to a physical description would mean that from this physical description we could get out. From that itself, we could get out.
What it feels like.
What it feels like. The scientists would be watching what's going on there and say, oh my, you're thinking of your mother right now and you're feeling ambivalent, aren't you? Without the person saying a word, without his reporting, so that we would get the correlations. And that kind of complete containment of one level of description into the other is what would be demanded in reduction. And we do get this in other fields of science. Mm-hmm. When thermodynamics is reduced to statistical mechanics, we can see what's going on the level of the molecules and say, yes, the water is boiling. We see exactly what's happening. The whole reduced description is contained in the reducing description.
So, but is it a question of amount, of detail, of sophistication, or is it so different in quality that you will never be able to do it? It's a fundamental difference.
Our science has gotten going ever since we made the move from the paradigm of Aristotle and teleological explanation, when we made the big move in the 17th century. All of our scientific descriptions and explanations are in terms of matter in motion. Mm-hmm. All of our theoretical terms basically reduce to matter in motion. That's why they can be captured mathematically, because they're structural descriptions describing matter in motion. Consciousness is of a different sort. The difference between one conscious state and another isn't described mathematically, isn't described in terms of matter and motion. We have a different level. A novelist gets at it in a way that a neurophysiologist can't. And it would be bridging those kinds of descriptions, showing that two different conscious states, the real difference really does lie in the difference of matter and motion. To me, it's inconceivable that will take place.
That's a very strong statement, though, because that would mean that what is happening? What would that mean? Because you're not claiming that there's some spooky thing going on.
It's material.
There. It's all material. It all is your matter in motion.
It's our matter, but scientific descriptions are only describing certain properties of matter, those that can be captured mathematically. And I think a priori it seems reasonable that not all the properties of matter can be captured that way. That some of the properties are intrinsic. They're not structural. They don't have to do with the relationships between different parts and how they're moving in relationship to each other. That's what basically these theoretical terms describe.
So that's a radically different approach. That says that it would be impossible, even in principle, using the way we understand matter today in terms of fields and forces and all of that, to be able to go from that, however much detail you would have, to an appreciation of this internal feeling that we have.
That's exactly what I think.
Okay, it's a very strong statement. Now, let's find out what that means. So is there anything else that you know of in all existence that would have that characteristic?
No, only consciousness.
Okay. All right.
And everything that I would say that this characteristic is true of somehow reduces to consciousness. The way we usually know about matter is, through straight observation and through scientific explanation and reduction and description, all of which gives us access to these structural properties of matter. The way that we know that matter is conscious is entirely different.
Right.
We
no
know
doubt.
Because we are conscious. We have a different way of accessing that. I think there are probably other properties of matter that we can't access. Maybe the ones that explain consciousness, the underlying properties.
So this is a very different approach that most my old colleagues in brain science would have. I mean, most would say that we're very far from a full science of consciousness, for sure, but there is no gap that if we continue along the process we're learning now, eventually we'll reach it where we'll be able to fully understand consciousness. You're saying not a chance.
I'm a complete skeptic about this. I think that if we actually look at how science proceeds, you see certain limitations on this method. To me, it's amazing that we've learned as much as we have. Why should we expect to learn everything? And it just so happens that we know one of the most fundamental properties of matter, that some of it can be conscious. We know it because we're conscious, but otherwise we could not, access it.
Some people would solve that problem by adding something that's not matter into the system, some dualism, some spirit or soul or what have you.
Yes.
Others don't like that because it has religious connotations or whatever, and so they would add a little bit of what they may call proto-consciousness to every little piece of matter.
Right.
And so some of them like to be called panpsychics, meaning there's a little bit of psychism in everything.
Yes. So
you don't like either one of those two, are you?
Well, dualism, I think that this is a completely invalid conclusion to draw from the incompleteness of our scientific understanding of matter to claim that this property, consciousness, must inhere in something non-material. I mean, that is presuming that we have a complete picture of matter, and so if we can't explain it, it must be immaterial. That's completely fallacious for me. I mean, you could have alternate arguments for dualism of various sorts, including a religious one or survival of death or whatever, what have you. But to base it on the irreducibility of consciousness is to me preposterous, because it presumes that we know what matter is in its entirety. Panpsychism, as well as I can understand it, seems to me very interesting. It is to say, look, that this consciousness probably comes from more fundamental properties, whatever they are. It's not just these complicated conscious states, but that there is something more fundamental lying in the intrinsic qualities of matter, and in some sense maybe in all of matter, and you need the right arrangements, like electromagnetism. I mean, the fundamental properties that explain electromagnetism are inherent in matter. You need the right kind of arrangements for it to become manifest. So too, perhaps, with consciousness. That seems to me a plausible view.
And potentially those are not one of the four fundamental forces of strong force or weak force or electromagnetism or gravity. Something new.
Something new. Something different that is not, one of the problems, of course, with this view, however, is that you would think that it would make itself manifest in other areas of material being, not just in consciousness, if it really is suffused throughout matter. So I have problems with this, but it does seem a more plausible view than reductionism or dualism.